Hello, everyone. It's Wednesday. It's stream day. Today we're going to be covering Let's Make a Legend. It's going to be for your fantasy world maps. So that's going to be fun. Looking forward to that. Legends are really cool. We're going to be covering all the basics. How do you make them? What are they? Where do you put them? When should you use them? I'm going to answer those kinds of questions. And before we dive into that, of course, there's a series of links you're going to find in the chat. If you haven't already, I totally recommend that you join our Discord server. We have an incredibly helpful community of like-minded or like map makers, so you should definitely check out that community, join, and just don't forget to get your Inkarnate role in the roles channel before you get in there if you want to check out all the channels. There's also, if you go check out what's new here, you're going to notice that we have our map prompts up for the month of July, and we have a stream calendar. And now, if you don't see the kind of streams that you want to be watching on our YouTube channel or on our stream here on Twitch, then you definitely want to leave a request. We have a stream request channel. It's on Canny. You'll see that link also in the chat. And that last link is our YouTube channel. We have an incredibly good YouTube channel. We have a lot of content there. So definitely go ahead and surf through that content. And if you don't see what you want to see, of course, I would refer you back to the stream request.canny page there so we can get that started. All right, well, I think that's enough time. Let's go ahead and just jump right in. So first, what basically is a legend? And you'll see that I have a legend here on this map. A legend is basically like a table of contents is to a book than it is to like a map. So basically what you'll find in the legend is a series of icons, and you'll find them on the map that you're working on. And sometimes when you're working on a legend, this is one of those requirements where you should consider using a legend, is when you have so many locations. See how grouped all these locations are? It would be odd to label every single location because it would kind of, all the text would be so close together. It would start to kind of uh, populate and take up too much room of the map. And so that's when you should decide that if you have this many locations on your map, that you might want to use a legend, because this way you can let the user or the viewer or the player know what exactly each icon is, and you'll leave lots of room. You've worked a number of hours on your map, and it would be such a shame to have all that text kind of covering all the beautiful landscape that you've put together. So a legend is very useful to identify things, but it also is an artistic choice to make space or clear up space on your map. So that way you're not hiding all that beautiful landscape. So that's when you should use a legend. And deciding what kind of icons to use in your legend just depends on the kind of locations that you want on your map. Like this is the ones that I have here are 10 different icons, and these were the ones that I could find the most generic. I went through a ton of maps. I looked at them and decided what were the most basic, and I found that villages, towns, cities, forts, capitals, temples, towers, ports, guilds, and shrines were kind of the most that I kind of found, but I'm sure there's exceptions to that. There were tons of maps that didn't have some of these as well, but these are the most generic that I could think of. But you could put anything that you want into a legend. It could be ruins. I didn't put ruins in there. I didn't put caves. I didn't put stuff like that. So just whatever kind of icon that you feel that you need to use to represent each thing on your map. So making a legend, pretty easy stuff. Now, when you're putting together a legend, it's super easy because we have legends right in the catalog here. You'll see we have a series of legends here. So you can just use those, just select one and pull it out, and then just kind of rotate it in the orientation that you want. And now when it comes to where to place your legend, that really determines on the space available for it, because you're not going to put the legend right over where your map is, right? If there's a location there, then it's going to hide that. So the best locations are closer to your frame or the edge of your map where there might be more ocean than land. It's okay if the legend kind of covers up some of your land, provided there's not some important location behind the legend. But usually around the edges is where the best place to put them. I don't have a lot of locations, so that corner works fine. That corner works fine. Right here might not work as good. I see some locations that are getting hidden by it. But that's generally on where you should put your legend, and then the orientation just depends on, you know, where the room is. So, I could flip everything around and then flip all the icons and the text inside. But just wherever there's room for it, generally ocean where there's a lot of ocean space, negative space, that's generally the best locations, because that way, again, you're not hiding anything on your map. Now, when it comes to putting them together, what I do is once I've kind of chosen the stamp or whatever it is I want to use for the background of the legend, what I'll do is I'll turn the grid on, and you'll use the grid to snap to grid so that you can snap the text and the icons so that way they're all lined up correctly, because sometimes you might have a hard time placing the text and the icons, and some will be off a little bit, especially if you're not very good at precision without some kind of guide. That is what the grid is for. The grid, snap to grid, move those icons, and then that way they're in the right location. And then once they're all lined up, you can just select all the icons and the text, turn off snap to grid, and maneuver them correctly to where they're more centered. All right, but the snap to grid is just to make sure that they're parallel to each other, that the text and the icons are well lined up. That's all that you need to use is the legend for that, or the grid for that. So I'll turn that grid back off. This is quite a hefty map, so it lags just a little bit. We're going to create our own legends using the shape tool. We'll open a new map for that. But I hope that kind of makes sense, that when you're kind of putting together your legend, it's just knowing when to use it, knowing what kind of icons you want to put on it, where to put it on your map. And then when it comes to being a little bit more creative, some of you might be a contractor or someone who works on the side to make maps. And when you're making this many maps, sometimes you want to have a more personalized legend. So we'll show you how to put together your own legend using the shape tool and stamps. And we'll kind of I'm going to ask people in the chat to kind of come up with themes, because sometimes when you're putting your legend together, you don't know what kind of theme that you want it to be. And that really depends on your campaign. Is your campaign high fantasy? Is it sci-fi? Is it going to be steampunk? Is it going to be a vampire type one, a dark fantasy, gothic horror? Once you know those kind of things, you know the setting of your campaign, that can determine the theme of the legend. Okay, so that's super important. Hello, all first-time chatters. Glad that you are here. So let's go ahead and step out of here. We're going to go back, and we're going to go ahead and open up a new map. It's going to go create new. I'm going to open it up in Fantasy World, since we're going to be doing that. Open that up. I'm going to open it up to 4K so that way you can see the details. And this is kind of my favorite part. So for those of you who are here, feel free to throw in suggestions for themes of what kind of legends you want. Okay, and there's a lot of different themes: vampire, werewolf, a pirate, whatever it is. So if you have suggestions for the type of themed legend that you want, please put that in the chat, okay? And we'll go ahead and put that together. All right, so first things first, you need to decide the theme. So for now, I'm going to use one that's has a theme, maybe just like a regular wooden one, a regular design. And what I'll do is I'll turn the grid on. The grid is helpful because then I can use it as a guide. Pirate theme, yes, love it. Cool. Desert theme, perfect. Awesome. Feel free to add more of you who are watching. We'll make all of those. If you can even post if you want to add several, feel free to add them. We might not make all of them, but we'll make as many as possible. Gothic, yes, love it. Okay, so the grid is on to help you as a guide so that way you know what pieces to add and remove. So we'll start with just the basic stuff. So with that shape, you click the shape, you're going to click the stamp. Now, because you're in Fantasy World, there isn't any stamps that work with the shape. That's fine. What you'll have to do is go to another one. Now, for me personally, I feel that the Fantasy World style has thicker black lines. Has some thicker line work. It's not hyper realistic. It's more focused on kind of a more cartoon look. So I feel that watercolor cities or watercolor battle maps, because they have that thicker line work in it, those work really well. So for the basic, I'm going to just use a watercolor one. I'm going to do something basic like wood. So first you'll want to choose the stroke, and I chose that wooden one, and then you're going to choose a fill. Now when it comes to the color or the tone of the background of the legend, I recommend a brighter color so that way the text can pop out against it. Now you can make it darker, just make the text lighter, but we'll start with something simple first. So I'll go ahead and just make sure that it's set to snap to grid at the bottom. And don't worry about making it the right size. Just start with it being big first, because once it's bigger, it's easier to see and it's easier to add stuff to it. So don't worry about scaling the legend to work perfectly in the negative space that you've assigned for it. Okay. Now you have your piece right here. So what's really nice now is that now that I have that, maybe I don't like how the corners are. So maybe I want to put some caps on there. So I'll go into that cog and just click, there's caps there. Click nodes. Wherever there's a node, you'll see the caps will show up. And that adds some nice corner pieces to the legend. So very simple trick there. Just make it start with an easy shape, a rectangle, and then make sure that you choose the stamp that you want, and then choose the fill that you want. Now, what's really nice about this is that I can copy and paste it and then change the wall or the stroke and change the fill at will. So we'll start with the first one, this one right here. And I'm just going to start with the basic shapes and just pick the text that you want. Of course, when you are doing text choice for what font to use, whatever font you're using to label locations on your map, that's the same font that you want to use on your legend. This way there's consistency with the font. It's going to look odd if you're using 3 different fonts for everything. And sometimes you can use different fonts, but some kind of continuity in the fonts is going to help to make the map look more professional. So definitely keep that in mind. And like I said, when you are putting down text, I would recommend that it be contrasting against whatever the fill color is. So because the fill color of the room is lighter, I should probably have the fill color be darker. And I'll remove the outline, it's not necessary, and I'll make it bold. And then just choose whatever text you want. Because I feel like there's just a wooden, I don't think I should use an elaborate, so we'll just use a very simple text. The IMFL English, we'll start with that, and then just type in legend. Oopsie. And then, again, you have the grid up as your guide, and it's set to snap to grid, so just kind of use that. And you notice that it's snapped evenly right in the center, and then you'll choose your icons. And I'll go back to Fantasy World for that. And I'm just going to put down random icons for now. Don't worry about them meaning anything quite yet. But we'll have like a village, and then we'll have maybe like a town, a city. And notice that I'm kind of balancing them out by using the grid to keep them together. Remember we mentioned that? So we'll go ahead and put another one here, and there should be enough room for one more right here. Now, if you don't have a lot that you're going to use, you can just center it like this, and then the text will go to the right of that. Now, if you want more room, if you want to have like maybe as many as 10 icons or more, then you might want to consider leaving some room for the text to fit in. So having that space, so columns there. Next, you'll just take your text and then just whatever the name is, like this, and then place it next to it. Now, for right now, I'm noticing the snap to grid isn't working too well, but just use the grid as a guide, and then just copy the paste the text. So putting together the legend is pretty simple. It's not complex. Those are the basic. So this is a very basic legend. There's not a whole lot of detail going on. It's pretty simple. So that's not hard to put together. Let me turn that grid up so you can take another look at it. So super easy, right? Now you might want to take it further than something as simple as just having a frame around it and then some text. You might want to elaborate. You might want to add more to it. Maybe you feel a little bit more creative than just having something simple. So now someone mentioned a pirate theme. So let's go do that. Let's go do pirates. Now, what's really helpful when thinking about a theme, it's always best to maybe find a pack that fits to the theme that you're thinking about. Someone mentioned pirate. So why don't we then open up the catalog and we'll go to Fantasy Battle Maps and we'll wait that to kind of load for a moment. And then we're going to end up choosing the pirate pack right here. And here's the pirate stamps. And now you can choose whatever these stamps that you want to use to kind of represent the frame around it. So keep it kind of easy there. Now that's kind of a huge stroke, so we'll kind of keep the stroke down a little bit more. You'll notice that it kind of has that shape. It's got a shadow. That's fine. We'll have it a shadow there. And then we want to change the fill as well. And again, it can be whatever you want. Maybe I just want to make it a wooden one. So we'll let that fill be there. And what I might want to do is some of that line work seems kind of thick. So what's helpful is to bring the contrast down. By bringing the contrast down, that line work gets diminished, and now the text won't be competing with the line work and the fill below it. So just kind of bringing the contrast down is kind of helpful. So that's that first step right there, is kind of doing the basics, the frame and then the fill, or the stroke and then the fill. From there, we can now go into the catalog and just kind of look at some of the pirate stuff that we have here. And we're sticking to the pirate theme, so just use the pirate pack for all of it. So that works out fine. So let's collapse all or expand all assets so that I can kind of see what I'm working with. You can do it. Doesn't look like it wants to. There we go. Expand all assets. There we go. So now you can kind of look at all the assets here that we have for pirate. There's quite a few. And now when it comes to decorating the legend, I kind of has the same approach that I use when I look at heraldry. Heraldry has certain elements on it. It has a mantle. It has a base. It has something. It has some holders on the side. It has a crown. When you're thinking about fantasy, and especially like high fantasy, high seas, then maybe you want to add some decoration. So let's kind of go over some of the options here. I know that there are some nice pieces right here. These decorations that kind of go to the back of a ship. These would work just fine for that. So let's maybe start with the bottom first and then move our way up. This could work well as a mantle, or the base of it. The mantle would be up here, kind of the base right here, or we could put it up here. It's up to you, whatever you think is best. Step one, maybe scale it down a little bit more. And I'll turn the shadow off for now, as we don't really need it. Maybe we want to pick the top of it, so I could maybe use the same stamps here, put on the top, whatever I want the mantle to be. I could just use the same one and just make it a little bit bigger if you wanted to. You could use something like this if you wanted it to have a shape, like a boat at the top. I mean, it's just be creative. The trick is, when you're looking at a stamp, is don't just look at it as just, oh, that's a ship part. It can also be a mantle. It could be a face. It could be whatever you want. So the objective, the way to be creative is to look at something, and you have to divorce yourself, or divorce the idea that what it's originally the art is intended for, but then think, okay, that also looks like a mask. That also looks like this or that. So being creative is about expanding and going beyond what the art originally is supposed to be used for, and kind of adding to it. So we'll go and put an octopus at the top. I think that would just kind of look more interesting. Like maybe in your campaign, there's a kraken or some kind of creature that your players fight. And so this kind of just adds to that. Like, hey, the creature is on that legend. So it's kind of a helpful little trick that you can kind of do there. And you can kind of add as much as you see fit to it. There's so many things that you can use. There's pirate flags. Maybe you want to create this idea of flags coming out like this, and you just flip them. Right? This is kind of a common theme, just adding flags down there at the bottom. Maybe you don't want flags. Maybe you want crossed swords. Right? Maybe you want to put a cannon. Maybe you want to put something, some lanterns hanging from it. It's just about kind of being creative, how elaborate you want it to be. There's a rifle right here. Let's put this one down like this. Make sure that it's above here. And if I just copy and paste it like this, then you have these kind of cross rifles right here. So it really kind of works out. So it's up to you just to kind of be creative, use the stamps that are within the pack, the theme that you're going with, and it all kind of comes together when you know that you just have to be creative and think outside of the box as well. And you can be add as much detail to the legend or to whatever you're working on as you want. You don't have to be super creative. That's fine, as long as the legend works, right? It's the first step is just getting it functional. Once the legend is functional, then you can start adding and extrapolating and adding more details to it. Just start with the basics, the shape, rectangle, oval, whatever shape. A legend can be any shape, any design. It could be a banner. It could be whatever you want. Be creative. So I'm just kind of teaching you the basic stuff, you know. So And then from there, you would just kind of take, we'll go ahead and lock this, take this stuff, copy, paste, and then just kind of put it here on the legend right here. I'll remove these right here just to get more room. There we go. And of course, I can change up the text to kind of be a better text. And I believe there is a pirate text. It's even called Pirate 1. So we'll just select this and then go to Pirate 1 because it's within that kind of theme. And then you would change all the text to be the same because really that's how I kind of decide. And of course, you can be creative about it. Your text doesn't have to be black. I mean, you can make it whatever color that you want it to be. You could change it, make it green if you wanted to. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. Whatever you think the text will kind of stick out. You throw an outline up there so it kind of pops out. Whatever you want. Be creative about it. You know, maybe these things right here, because there's no green on them, it looks weird. Add an object shadow to it. Make it green. There you go. So be creative. Think about the theme. Think about the color palette. All these things are super helpful. So I'll just go create the group, and there is your pirate legend. So pretty easy to kind of put the basics together. We'll make another one. Someone had mentioned there's a pirate theme. Let's make a desert theme. When you add an object shadow is when you select it, you select the item. It should be here. There's a shadow, and the options are none, default, custom, and layer shadow. So if you don't see that, you might have to scroll down a little bit, up to you, but just hit custom object shadow and then click this icon here, and then you can make the adjustments that you need. So super duper easy, right? Not complex. So let's try to make, we'll make another one. Let's scale these two down. They're kind of huge. Just bring them down to size here. There we go. Okay. So just like before, right? We're just going to use that same shape, but this time I'm going to actually make a more unique shape. We'll add a little bit more detail to each legend that we create. Now, of course, when you're adding more to a shape, you do want snap to grid on so that way when you're adding to the legend, that means by adding, I'm adding more shape to the shape. So just kind of keep that in mind. So we'll do a desert theme and make sure that I'm set to the same settings as this right here. Generally, when you select a shape and then you go to make a new shape, it will generally select the same, not generally, it will select the same style of shape that you previously selected, okay? Now make sure that snap to grid is on. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a different element here. There we go. Just to add a different shape. It kind of reminds me a little bit like a roof shape. A little bit. So just adding new shapes to it to make it look more unique. I can do the same thing at the bottom, but I'll do something different, maybe something smaller. Maybe I want to add a little bit more to it, add another shape right here, a circular shape like this. There we go. So just use the grid as your guide. So as you see now, and just using the shape tool to kind of make it fit together more. Let's go ahead and change the stamp scale. And I'm kind of noticing here that there's a piece not coming right here on this piece to this edge point. Let's go back to caps, turn them back on maybe. Doesn't look like it's going on to that node right there. Generally, if that happens, you just find the stamp that was used for the node and then just put it on top, okay? And you don't have to use nodes at all. That's really up to you. I could just turn the nodes, the caps off, and that problem no longer exists, right? Okay, so I've made the shape. I've used the grid tool to make the shapes, and it looks kind of new and unique, right? So now I can turn that grid off. I don't really need it anymore, but I want to stick to the theme, right? So I'll go back into the catalog and I'll choose desert because someone chose a desert theme. So let's go ahead and do that. And you can kind of choose whatever stamp that you want to use. You can use this kind of stamp right here. We can use this one right here if you want some more gold kind of shape to it. Maybe you want to make it made out of wood if you want. It's up to you. So you just have to figure out what kind of shape you want. Since it's desert, I want it to look as obviously desert as possible. So I think these kind of sand-y color stamps right here work really nice. These work just fine. I kind of like that. I would say the scale's maybe a little too big. And just bring the scale down, and then you have that nice color, that yellow. And then we'll go into the texture and then choose the fill that you want. We'll kind of go with this one. We'll change the fill size. And then when I decide to add the text, I'm going to want to have obviously a thick outline of the text because this pops out. This is kind of bright, right? It's kind of difficult. We could bring the brightness down on it. So we can go to the adjustments here and bring the brightness down. There we go. And we're going to use contrast to have the frame of the legend pop out. And then the dark. So contrast, dark fill, light stroke, and that way you're using contrast to pop out. And then whatever icons I put down on there, they will kind of pop out, whether I want to add a shadow to them or I want to add, make them brighter, whatever it might be, okay? So now that I have that shape, I can go into the catalog of shapes here or into the stamp catalog and kind of just choose the icons that I want to use. And what I'll do is I'll decorate the top. We'll add that on there. Maybe I want to put a pillar. Maybe there's a fallen pillar down here like this. You can always go with an asymmetrical frame. So no, it's not perfectly symmetrical. So maybe a fallen pillar down here works great. Go back into that catalog and just kind of look at what items that you can use to make it look more interesting. Maybe I want to have some of these guys kind of hanging out right here. Okay, so just be kind of creative. Figure out what's going to work best. Just throw on that. It's just, and the real way to make it easy is just to establish a theme, and that way you'll know what pack to use, and then boom. So that way you won't get lost in the avalanche of stamp options, stamp catalog that we have. So many stamps for this style. So you might get lost. I'm like, oh, I want to use this. I want to use that. Sticking to a pack, the theme, and then the pack is going to make putting together your compositions for your legends just so much easier. I really just cannot stress that enough, okay? So definitely do that. All right, so we'll take a step back and just kind of look at it. I think overall this looks fine, but you can add as many details as you want. Just know that the more details means that it takes up more space and less room for the contents of the legend. So just kind of keep in mind, don't go too haywire. And also, you're going to end up scaling it down so they won't see as many details. So my suggestion is only add enough details that are going to give the legend a unique look to it, that's going to tell a story, that's going to fit, that's going to make the theme overwhelmingly obvious to the person who is looking at it. And then that way, you know, you won't spend too much time, because it would really suck if you're kind of working on a legend and you've worked on it for like 5 hours because you spent so much time trying to put it together. Don't do that. Just only add enough, again, to make it obvious to the viewer what it is and what the theme is, and that's it, okay? Like I put a broken column because maybe your players have to go to a series of broken columns in this desert area to look for, I don't know, whatever it is you can think of as a DM, right? So be creative, and then don't worry about overdoing it. Just put what you want to add to it, okay? You don't have to add a whole lot. Maybe I want to put some more asymmetry to the frame, so I can always kind of put this ruin like right here on this side here. Let's take that down, put it here, right here instead. You can always add to it. You can always bulk up the frame. Just remember, leave space. Okay, I'm going to flip this. There we go. Okay. There we go. I think that kind of adds a little bit more interesting kind of flavor to it, putting some ruins at the bottom there, because there's a ruined thing. There we go. Perfect. That looks fine. And we're going to copy paste and then kind of put this in here. And you can see already the problem, right? That the background there just doesn't seem to kind of work that well. So we might want to do some changes to fix that. So again, you're using contrast as the trick. So changing the text to white already makes it pop out. I'll turn off the grid too, so you can kind of see that better. So already that kind of helps. And then of course, these icons right here seem to be quite meshing quite a bit. So again, you can just use an object shadow at white and then really make those pop out more. You can kind of move them around. You can change the size of the text here. You can add more details in the negative space, whatever it is that you want to do, okay? So just kind of be creative. Let's also choose a different font, because I don't want to use the same font. And we'll kind of look something that would work for that, maybe like a Jim Nightshade here. This works kind of good. That it also takes up more space, so that's perfect. And then I'll just select all this text here, and we'll change it to that as well. Let's see here. Where was it? There it is. Okay. All right. There you go. So you know, putting a legend together is not complex. We're gonna make. Let's see. Let me go check into the chat here. There's also a Gothic one, and then we're gonna call it good because that's about the 40-50 minute time limit after that. So let's go ahead and just kind of group that. And generally, you should label them first. So I'll just put like desert. Okay. So that theme is done. So really easy, right? So let's go bump it up one more. We're gonna make one more legend. And we're just going to use the same method that we've been using. But of course, we're going to add more and more this time to this one. So we'll make sure that this is snapped to the grid. Because when I'm using that shape tool, I want to make sure that it's going to be even. We're going to be kind of symmetrical. It can be asymmetrical too. It just depends. I think actually what I should be doing is making a sci-fi legend because some people are going to have sci-fi, but maybe we can fit that in if we can get this one quickly. So let's change the shape up on this one. Make sure it's set to the same style. But instead of doing additive in a sense of using other shapes, let's use nodes this time to kind of create a more interesting legend. So what I can do is I can just use these nodes right here to kind of create a different shape. So check this kind of a cool trick here. I can snap to grid here, kind of make sure that everything is snapped to grid here. I can create more interesting shapes this way. Hey, if you don't like that, we can kind of bring it in a little bit more like this. That shape looks good. And then maybe we want to make it just a little bit more interesting. Kind of just move it in a little bit more like this. Let's push this up a little bit. Let's push it down maybe. This. Make it kind of look like a shield. Oopsie. This is why you use the grid. See, this is where the grid is helpful for putting things together. And we'll push this out just, I think, a little bit more like this. You know, I don't really like that shape. Kind of looks kind of like cat ears. I don't think that's going to work. But you get the general idea. You can use nodes to kind of create the shape that you want. So that's kind of a fun little trick that you can do there. Let's go ahead and move these out of the way. We'll scale them down even more. Give ourselves more room. There we go. There we go. So again, you can use nodes, not just adding more shapes on top of it. So kind of a nice little trick that you can do there. And we'll go ahead and turn off our caps as we don't need them right now. But we can just, again, let's go to Gothic horror. Let's use a different style. Let's use watercolor battle maps, and then there should be a Gothic horror style. There we go. And you'll see here that you have the Gothic style. That's perfect. So let's go ahead and select this. We'll go into the catalog, and then you look at what options are in Gothic horror. You can use battle maps, whatever you want. I'm going to use kind of this eerie looking shape right here. I kind of like this. Kind of has a nice shape to it. I kind of like that. Looks kind of scary. And then I'll go into the catalog and then choose the texture that I want. And remember the rule, just using contrast really as the guide. I kind of want it to be kind of scary and dark. So maybe I'll just kind of go with this kind of color. We could go with something a little bit lighter. This one right here. Okay. I think this will work fine here. It's kind of contrasted down a little bit. Let's, just so the line work won't clash as much with the line or with the text, if I scale it down, it also doesn't bring the line work to be smaller, but it should help there. And then we can also rotate it just a little bit because I'm seeing that whenever you scale a texture down, it begins to be more repetitive. So we'll just kind of rotate it like this. And then I'll rescale just a little bit so it's not so much repetition. Okay, I think that works fine there. Okay. And then because it's already selected, I have these options right here. And just kind of think, again, think of the mantle, think of the base, and just be creative. Things are not things are not just a bench or a table or whatever. So what I want to do is I kind of want to use that beautiful kind of yellowish kind of filigree, that kind of design right there. I kind of like that color. So that kind of works kind of well there. There should be this, and then we can kind of just put it right behind, right here like this, behind it. And then you have some nice, elaborate kind of flourishing to it, right? So all you did was just hide the chair part, but the beautiful engraving, the beautiful kind of, I don't know what to call it, that you used, and that way it kind of looks nice and a little decorative to it there. Okay, so I kind of think that looks good there. And then we just kind of go through and just kind of add whatever stamps that we want to add that's going to make it look more interesting. So I can maybe, I want to put maybe this kind of piece in here that adds in a nice, I like that U shape of the horn there. So I think that looks nice. And then maybe I want to kind of use some candles right here. I kind of like these candles, and I'll make them kind of look like what's called, well, let's make them have light actually. We'll put it here. I'm going to make sure it's on top. And these kind of remind me of like what's called a finial. So those kind of look nice there. And then we can kind of think about some nice shapes here. I kind of like this piece right here. Because that looks like a head, I want to hide that. So I'll just kind of put that over it to hide that head. And then it adds a little bit more detail to it. And then maybe I want to use this piece right here to kind of adorn the bottom part. It kind of already has that shape. And so I just kind of, either I can go underneath of it or I can put it on top of it. It's up to you. Whatever you think looks good. I think that looks fine. I'm not even sure. Maybe it looks better underneath. Yeah, I think it looks fine like that. Okay. And then just kind of add to it as you see fit. Like maybe I kind of like this shape right here. So, and I kind of feel like just looking at that red underneath is kind of plain. So what I'll do is I'll take more of these and kind of just put them right on top like this. And then I'll put another one right here like this. And just kind of be creative, right? Don't limit yourself, just add stuff. And things are never going to turn out perfect at first. If this is your first time kind of putting things together and being creative, then it might take a few moments for you to kind of get used to it. So, but don't give up, just have fun, be creative. All right, let's kind of take a look at what else we have here. That's kind of interesting. I like that shape. Oh, I like this right here. This is kind of a cool shape. That's cool. Maybe that would do good right on top, right here like this. I think that looks good. Or if you want, you can use blood instead. If you want to fit more with the Gothic kind of feel to it. Maybe it's like vampire Gothic. So add some of that to it there. So that kind of looks good. And then maybe I can add what's called a watermark. Watermark is going to be a very faint image in the background. And so what you can do to make a watermark is really simple. Just set the blend mode of the object to luminosity, and you're going to have to do a couple things. You have to bring the brightness up and bring the contrast way down. And then once you've done that, then it starts to look like it's a part of the background. Okay, so you have a nice little watermark. So remember that trick. Luminosity, bring the brightness up and the contrast down, and then you have this nice watermark. If you don't like the way it looks that way, you can flip it around or put it like this, or use whatever you want to act as that piece there. And then I think I will just add some blood as well. And so there's no blood here, but oh, let's add one more thing. Let's add in some roses. I think this would be kind of a nice touch to throw in some of these blood red roses here. And then let's put some right here as well. There we go. Let's just take a look at it. Yeah, that's good. And then I think I'll have some on the side too. But what I'll do is I'll put them behind those stamps. One more right there. There we go. Okay. So now you got some nice, some flowers there. I think that overall looks nice. Let's turn that grid off. Okay. And there's a lot of space there, but let's just go ahead and create the group. I'm going to call it Gothic. And then I'm going to open up the group, and then we're going to look for some blood. So I'll go back to watercolor battle maps and just type in blood. And then we'll just throw some blood on here. Oopsie, we want to go up a layer so it's above. There we go. And I'll bring the opacity down so that it's not too overpowering. There we go. Put some blood on there. Yeah. Just kind of make sure that it doesn't go outside of the legend, right? Make sure that it stays within the base, inside the fill shape space. Okay, so you got some blood there. And then we can finally go in with our text. Copy, paste, put it in here like this. And you have that problem, right? Where it kind of looks like you can't see very much of it. So you just got to stick to that, trying to make the text look better. So what we'll do is, I'm just going to do this, select all the text. We're sticking with like a kind of a reddish theme. So let's just go with like a red Blood color, let's throw an outline so that it pops out. Oopsie, let's do that. Let's make sure the outline is at full opacity. There we go. And so they kind of pop out a little bit more that way. And then you can just follow that same trick, right? Just select all the icons on there and then take that object shadow and just make it red. It will stick all within the theme and bring that intensity up so it really, 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 really pops out. There we go. So really making the legend is not complex. It's just about thinking outside the box, kind of putting things together. So not complex, super easy. And you can do a lot of things with this method of the shape tool. You can make more than just legends. You can make frames for your maps. You can make title, kind of fancy titles for space or placards for your maps. You can make scales with the line and shape tool. You can do all kinds of things with the line and the shape tools. Those are relatively new. They come with Pro. Definitely go get your Pro sub, and then you can totally have the line and shape tools at your advantage. So really following these basic tricks, just the basic shape, just a stroke, and then the shape, and then a fill, and then just kind of add stamps on top of that, stick to a theme so that way there's continuity visually. With that, remember to use the same text that you use on locations on the map for the same text for the same font that you're using for your legends as well. So really, that's about it. It's pretty easy to make a legend, and don't worry about making them super complex. Just start with easy stuff first. It's a great thing to have in your repertoire, especially if you're a professional map maker. You're making maps, you have, a Patreon, and you want to show off your work. To get that extra oomph in your map, that extra pop, throwing in a custom legend like this is a great way to kind of make yourself stand out from other map makers, so that way you kind of bring in more clients. So be creative, have fun, just sit down and just make a bunch of them just for fun. Give yourself an assignment. Make a desert one, make the Gothic horror one, the pirate, the orc, the human, the elf, whatever it might be, those themes, and just kind of practice and kind of make them if you have the time. But again, you don't have to be complex. Just make a simple legend. It can be as simple as this first legend that we made right here. It doesn't have to be complex. That's really just how much work, how much effort, how much time you want to put into making your map. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're making your maps. All right, well, hey, that's it. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you all again next Wednesday. I do believe that it's going to be part 2 of the Elven Citadel that we made with the watercolor battle map style. We kind of made the ground floor, but we did not make the first, the second, and the third floors, I believe. So we'll be finishing that up, or at least trying to get as much done in that next one. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. Don't forget to join our Discord, and I will see you all shortly, okay? Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. Take care, everyone.